At the end of '97, I got a call from Mark Fisher, and he wanted us a partner in creating a show in the center of the Millennium Dome. I think the area that it's plugged into for me, for years, you know, I've wanted to try and get involved in an experience park. That was the concept, was sort of amusement park, but designed by the most interesting artists and scientists of the day. And that's, you know, a hugely ambitious and expensive project, and it's been very difficult to realize. But there's little bits and pieces that when we're, you know, working in shows or some of the multimedia things, or in this instance with the Dome, where you're working with different people from different disciplines, and you get a lot of interesting people throwing in ideas and brainstorming. That's the stuff that really turns me on. It's like being given the biggest playpen in the world, and, you know, being allowed to sort of start dreaming. So that was, I think, the hook for me. I think Mark Fisher's done some amazing work, particularly in the sort of spectacle end of rock. The Zoo TV show he did for U2, all the work with the Floyd and the Stones, for example, some very effective and I think intelligent presentations. We spent basically the first year, I guess, working on the ideas and on the visual ideas. Given the fact that we were asked to do something about the past, present and the future, it sounded all very sort of vague, and, you know, the entire history of mankind in 20 minutes. I thought it much better if we could just focus on a family, a single family, and have 3 generations of the family, and try and show maybe the conflicts and struggles between the different eras. We have the agricultural world, in which some man learns to survive with working with nature. The second would be sort of industrial period. Coal and steel get discovered and their use really exploited for the first time, and the huge changes that has on creating this wonderful world, which ends up enslaving and entrapping the people. Act 3 is the post-industrial, in a way representing the future. There was the idea at the end that the baby OVO, born as the sort of representative of the future, would fly off, you know, in this sort of nest. So you have this sort of organic spaceship idea, really, in a sense. So it would be a little 2001. We'd spent a long time on the story, and it was quite clear that in the 20 minutes of an impressionistic show, it was going to be quite hard to communicate some of the stuff that we'd worked on. So I've been sort of fighting for the last 2 years to try and turn it into a book, working with this French illustrator, Christian Perret. And this is it, OVO. Yeah, one of the things that interested me a lot about the project was the idea of 2 Britons. We're going to have a traditional Britain, which would have much more sort of historical, traditional references. The folk area is something that I'm not well informed and haven't done a lot of. And Richard Evans, you know, I think grew up in Northumberland playing that music from when he was so very young. So he helped write on the Real song. And I think, yeah, he and Simon both brought stuff in which I would not have been able to go near. And then against that, you'd have a sort of contemporary multicultural Britain, and would include Asian elements, African, Australian elements that would all help to make a much sort of fuller picture of what Britain is now. I think that was reflected in the designs and in the clothing. So that, you know, I'm sure a lot of people miss a lot of that stuff, but a lot of time and effort went into trying to contrast those elements. Because of the brief of the project, I was led to various bits of music that I probably wouldn't normally have approached or explored. and I really enjoyed that process. And the brass was a great thing, you know, working with the players and just being surrounded by all that sound. So that's something that I enjoyed and wouldn't mind looking at again. The writing is still the thing that gives me the most pleasure. And then I think the process of the recording, bringing in other people, I think it's always sort of fresh impetus, fresh stimulus from outside that sort of are the moments that are the most enjoyable. And the sort of slog part of trying to finish lyrics, for instance, is very hard for me.
The actual live work with instrumentational vocalists is always a high point, especially just from vocals, because it's like the icing on the cake. It's like, you know, the final point of hearing a completed lyric.
One of the things really appealed to me on this too was working with different singers, because normally, you know, you only get to hear when you write something your own version of it, and the first versions of these songs were going to go out to the world, were going to be sung by other people. Elizabeth Fraser, for example, who I loved her singing with Cocteau Twins and, you know, more recently with Massive Attack, but I was very happy she was willing to get involved, and she did the part of Sophia, who's the daughter, but there's a tenderness and a sort of vulnerability in her voice which I think is very appealing.
My manager said, "Oh, Elizabeth, I think you can expect a phone call from Peter Gabriel very soon, because I think he wants to ask you about getting involved in the Millennium Dome project." So I came over to the studio and he played some things. I watched a 20-minute computer-generated film, loved all his ideas. I liked all the sentiments and thought, oh, I've never done anything like this before. This is a bit more like the sort of thing that I'm interested in or reading about or drawn to.